Hello again. I am Christine Dixon of The Ordinary Sacred. Welcome back. I'm excited to give you another example from Martha Sweezy's Internal Family Systems Therapy for Shame and Guilt. And this one is about her client Marina's ensorcelled baby. I had to look up the word ensorcelled. I had never heard that before. I had some sense maybe it comes from the word sorcery, which it does. So ensorcelled means enchanted, or a spell is put on this baby part. So many of our protectors are very much afraid of our exiles. The protectors are the ones who exile them, right? They lock them away, hide them, bury them, enchant them, put a spell on them so that they can't come into our consciousness. Because if we're blended with the intense shame, helplessness, hopelessness, despair, grief of these parts of us, we can't function in our everyday lives, right? So our protectors mean well. They're doing the only thing they know to do, which is to try so hard to keep those parts down, away, out of consciousness, right? And they have all these strategies, but they just don't know that there is one inside of each of us, the capital S self, that is capable, that is bigger than even the biggest overwhelming part of us, that can hold them and be with them and love them in their suffering, and really help heal them so they don't have to have such intense pain. Okay, so Martha says the number one fear of protector parts is that they and the body will be overwhelmed with the panic, loneliness, and hopeless desperation of exiled parts who believe they are being shunned because they're unworthy of love. This is a really good summary of what is happening in the system. And I like her point that they're afraid of the body being overwhelmed, right? I have a lot of parts who really fear my panic response in my body. I've had many panic attacks, and the collapse response of my body when I just lose all energy, can't even speak, and it comes on very suddenly. So I have a lot of parts who really fear that and try to manage it or keep it out of my consciousness. She goes on, from an abandoned infant to the older child who's neglected, abused, or exploited. Exiles are emotional landmines, and protectors do everything they can to avoid, contain, or diffuse them. Okay, so here is an example called Marina's ensorcelled baby. Marina is a 25-year-old gender fluid, pansexual, partnered Cuban American graduate student who came to therapy because they were restless in their relationship and feared being bored in their chosen profession. So Marina's firefighter is speaking here and says, "I'm wondering if I should just try polyamory." Martha says, "Say more." And Marina says, "I'm restless. I always want to just move on." And Martha says, "Where do you notice that physically?" So trying to locate that part that's feeling restless. Marina says, "In my chest and radiating out." So Martha says, "How do you feel toward it?" Assessing for self-energy. And Marina says, "I'm in it," right? So indication she's probably blended with it. But Martha says, "In it? What does that mean?" And Marina says, "Yes, and a little annoyed and a little curious." Okay, so she's kind of blended with it, that there's a part that's annoyed with it and a part that's curious, or perhaps herself. And so Martha says, "Does it notice you?" So as she's assessing for self-energy, it's first, how do you feel toward it? And then she's giving kind of a lot of different things. So now she's going to ask, does the part notice you? What does it see in you, to kind of assess if Marina's self is there? And Marina says, it's saying, go, hurry. That's interesting. So that kind of angsty, desperate energy definitely reveals a part, right? Like someone may make a self-led decision to be polyamorous, but in this case, you can tell that this is a part of Marina, right? Because of its energy of desperation, impatience, restlessness. Go, hurry. And so Martha asks, are you still feeling curious? And Marina nods. And Martha says, what would happen if you stood still instead of going? Right? So like, what is it afraid would happen if you didn't go and hurry? Marina takes a few beats to go inside and ask, and then says, I would die, maybe? I don't know. And the therapist says, just ask. So when the client says, maybe, I don't know, or I think, it could be, right? It's usually a thinking part or an analyzing part that's guessing. And you don't have to guess, right? You can just go in directly and receive a part from, or an answer from the part, just like another person was talking to you and you're receiving an answer. So Martha says, just ask. And then Marina says, I'm seeing a dead child in a coffin with flowers on his chest. My mother took me to the funerals of families who drowned in the Mariel boat exodus from Cuba and told me never to forget. She is a right-wing Florida Republican, so we disagree about everything. I tell her she is enabling white supremacist, and she tells me about dead children. And Martha says, sounds productive. Sarcastic part there. Marina says, yeah, we started fighting when I was 12. So this is interesting though, because what happened there, my assessment is the part started showing her some origins of being exposed to these images of dead children. But then another part came in making commentary about her mom and the disagreement. So now she's saying, we started fighting when I was 12. And Martha says, is the 12-year-old the one who wants you to go, go, go? And Marina says, the go part is in the 12-year-old, but has many ages. Yeah, okay, so this is really interesting. A lot of times parts can be kind of like nesting dolls, and I think what Marina's saying is that part took on its job earlier than 12, but was very present and blended at 12. Like I have, a people-pleasing part that came online at 6, but she was my dominant part and ran my life for many, many, many years. So she was inside parts at many, many different ages. And so Martha says, where does the part want you to go? Right? Because it was saying, go, hurry. So Martha's feeling curious here. Marina says, the part wants me to get help. So Martha says, for what? Marina says, I don't know, and then pauses to go in and ask. And the part says, can you raise the dead? And Martha says, does it mean the boy in the coffin? Marina says, I see a baby in a bright, sunny bubble. Its eyes are open, but it's very still, like time has stopped, but it's alive, not dead. And Martha says, does the go part know that the baby is alive? Marina says, it thought it was dead, but now it sees the baby's okay. Someone put a spell on it. And Martha says, why? Marina says, so it would wake up in another time. Martha says, when? And Marina pauses and says, later, when things get better. And then again, Martha says, why? Marina says, because mom was so depressed. And Martha says, what does this ensorcelled baby need? Marina says, they need to be held. I will get it out of the bubble. So this is fascinating, right? This part is saying you need to go. I'm going to freeze this exile basically back in that time and not let it out until things get better. It almost reminds me too of like a dissociative part, right? I'm just going to kind of take you out of your body because what you're experiencing feels so traumatic and threatening, right? So for a young child to have, or a baby to have a depressed mother means that the mother can't attune to the baby. And that feels very threatening to a baby because they're dependent on their mother to survive, right? So in order to get through that, the only option to this helpless being is to just completely tune out, freeze until things get better. Yeah, really, I feel a lot of compassion toward that. So the last note that Martha says is, as we hear, one part put a spell on the baby because it was too needy for a mother with depression. But the go part thought the baby was dead and wanted someone to rescue it. Without a narrative context, which Marina was now getting, this sense of imperative felt like an uncomfortable but inborn, inevitable restlessness and dissatisfaction. As it turned out, it was neither inborn nor inevitable. It was that problem for protective parts, the fear of emotional overwhelm. So, yeah, sometimes we can feel a restlessness under the surface, or maybe sometimes it'll feel like an irritability or a desperation to, I have to go, I have to move, I can't stay still. And we don't know what it's about. We just kind of feel it in our body. And then our intellectual parts interpret it. Oh, it means I need a new partner, or I need a new experience, a new risk-taking behavior or something. But if we go inside and we turn toward it and we ask it, why do you feel this way? It will reveal its secret history of what happened in the past when it wasn't safe to be still, or what it's running from, or what it's afraid would happen if we were still. And then we can update it. We can go to the part stuck in the past and help them and bring them into the present. We can let them know they're not alone and they're not in danger now, or if we are in danger now, make a plan to get out of danger. So it's always, always so beneficial to take a moment and go inside and listen whenever we feel any ripples in the water, right? Any kind of anxiety, restlessness, irritability, frustration, sadness, heaviness, anything. Just, if you can, just go in real quickly and say, I see you. I'm here with you. What do you want me to know? It can be 10 seconds, and I guarantee it's worth it. And if your system is not sure about that, just experiment with tiny, tiny bits of turning toward what's alive in you, what feels distressing, to see if there's one inside of you that can hold it and handle it and listen to it and be with it. All right, thanks for listening to that example. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below.